It started with a song, a haunting melody that rose from the sea during the Festival of Masks. But what Maya didn't know was that the masked musician who stole her heart that night wasn't a man at all. He was a prince. A merman. And their moonlit romance would awaken a prophecy the sea had buried for centuries. She thought she'd fallen for a charming stranger with kind eyes and a mysterious voice. But when he vanished without a word, Maya was left with more than just memories. She was pregnant. And under the full moon, her belly glowed like coral. What came next would shatter the fragile peace between land and ocean. A furious sea queen. A child destined to unite two worlds. A mother willing to risk everything, even her most cherished memory, to save her daughter. They thought she was just a palace servant with a wild imagination. They were wrong. This is the story of how a curious village girl unknowingly became the bearer of a mermaid baby, and how her love, her sacrifice, and her courage would challenge the ocean's oldest laws. Before we dive deeper into this epic tale, we'd love to know where you are watching from. Tell us in the comments. And if you love high-stakes fantasy filled with mermaids, magic, love, and sacrifice, don't just watch, be part of our adventure. Like this video, share it with someone who loves powerful stories, and hit that subscribe button, because tomorrow, we've got an extra special story lined up for you, and trust me, you won't want to miss it. In the village of Tumbala, music was more than sound. It was magic, it was memory, it was life. Drums talked, flutes sang, and the air shimmered with the beat of celebration. Every year, during the Moon Dance Festival, the people wore colorful masks, dressed in beads and feathers, and danced under the stars to welcome blessings from both land and sea. Maya, a young palace servant, loved this time more than any other. She was small and skinny, with skin the color of new yam, eyes bright like kola nut shells, and a heart full of dreams. Though she worked in the palace of King Oba in Tumbala, scrubbing floors and carrying baskets, her mind always danced with thoughts of books, of the stars, of worlds far beyond the village walls. I want to be a scholar, Maya whispered to herself as she sat beside the river after her chores, sketching the shapes of birds in the mud with a stick. One day, I will wear robes and read scrolls under the baobab tree. She had no parents, only stories. She was found floating in a basket by the riverbank when she was a baby. Some said she was sent by the gods. Others said she was cursed. But the old cook who raised her, Mama Doja, believed she was a blessing. You are meant for something great, Mama Doja would say, stirring pots of spicy egusi soup. Even if you were born by the river, child, the river does not forget its own. This year's moon dance was special. It happened once every 50 years, when the moon was fullest and the tide pulled even the deepest secrets toward the shore. That evening, the drummers played faster than thunder, and the dancers spun like the wind. The whole village was alight with torches and laughter. Maya wore a borrowed wrapper and painted white dots on her cheeks. Her heart beat fast, not just from the drums, but from the mystery of the night. Then she saw him. A tall boy, maybe a man, stood near the center of the dancing ground. His skin shimmered like wet sand. He wore a red mask with golden fish painted on it and played a strange drum, round and smooth, with seashells hanging from the sides. The rhythm he beat made the air tingle and the firelight dance in new colors. Maya couldn't stop staring. His drum sang to something deep inside her. It was like the river calling her name. As the night went on, the masked boy played and played. And when Maya stepped forward to dance, his drum followed her steps like magic. The crowd cheered, thinking it was a game, but the rhythm between them was real, alive. After the festival, when the fires burned low and the dancers had gone, Maya walked by the river again, her feet bare on the warm earth. "You danced beautifully," a voice said. She turned. The boy with the red mask stood by a palm tree. Without his mask, he looked even stranger, eyes deep like the ocean, with silver flecks that moved like fish, and long dark hair tied with a coral bead. "Who are you?" Maya asked. "I'm Kuba," he said softly. "A traveling musician. But your drum, it doesn't sound like any I've heard. And your eyes, they shine." Kuba smiled, but it was sad. "I can't tell you everything. But I came to see how humans live. Just for a while." And then I must return. To where? He looked at the river. Far beneath. Maya laughed, thinking it was a joke. You speak like a story. Maybe I am one, Kuba said. They sat by the water and talked for hours, about stars, dreams, and the sound of waves. He told her tales of moonfish that glowed like lanterns, and singing dolphins that guarded sunken temples. She told him of her dream to read every scroll in the palace library and become the first girl scholar in Tumbala. And before the moon dipped below the hills, they kissed. It was soft, warm, and full of secrets. That night, something ancient stirred in the water. The waves danced in patterns, and a silver fish leaped into the air and vanished. The next morning, Kuba was gone. Maya searched the village. She asked the drummers, the mask makers, even the children, but no one had seen him. All he left behind was a small harp made from a white seashell, tied with palm string and tiny silver charms. When she plucked its strings, it sang in a language she didn't know, but it made her heart ache and smile at the same time. She carried it with her always. But 2 moons later, strange things began to happen. Maya's belly began to swell. The palace midwives whispered. Some called her cursed. Others blamed river spirits. But one night, when she looked at her belly in the moonlight, she gasped. It glowed. Soft, coral-colored light pulsed gently under her skin like a heartbeat. Like a light waiting to be born. And deep in the Gulf of Xander, far below the sea foam and shark trails, Prince Kuba stood before Queen Mother Nia, ruler of the coral fortress. You went to the surface, she roared, her voice shaking pearls from the ceiling. After all we lost. After your brother never returned. Kuba knelt. Forgive me, Mother. I fell in love. And she is carrying our child. The queen's eyes darkened like a storm. Then the child must die. Maya sat alone in the servant quarters, her back pressed against the cool clay wall, the shell harp clutched tightly in her hands. Outside, the evening breeze blew gently through the palm trees, and the sound of distant drums floated in the air. But tonight, Maya didn't feel like dancing. Her belly glowed softly again. It was the 3rd night in a row. Not bright enough for the whole village to see, but clear enough in the moonlight. A warm coral-colored shine, like a lantern underwater. What is happening to me? She whispered, fingers trembling as they touched her stomach. Is it a curse? Or is it magic? Suddenly, the door creaked open. It was Mama Doja, her eyes tired but sharp as always. The old woman walked in slowly, her wrapper rustling and her wooden beads clicking with every step. Maya, she said, voice low but serious, come with me. Now. Maya stood quickly, hiding the glow beneath her scarf. Mama Doja led her to a quiet corner behind the cooking house, where the scent of pepper soup still hung in the air. There, under the shadow of the big mango tree, she pointed to the ground. Sit. Maya obeyed, nervous. I've seen things, child, Mama Doja said, folding her arms. Long ago, I saw a woman just like you. Young. Bright. Belly full of light. The elders whispered about her. She vanished before her baby was born. Maya's eyes widened. What happened to her? No one knows. Some say the river took her. Some say she ran to the hills. Others say she became a spirit. Mama Doja's voice dropped. But you are not cursed, Maya. Maya opened her mouth to speak, but Mama Doja raised a finger. You are chosen. Chosen? By who? The sea, she replied. Silence fell between them. The wind rustled the leaves, and a gecko clicked on the tree bark. Maya stared at her belly. Then, this baby, it's not human. Mama Doja nodded slowly. Maybe half. Maybe something more. But child, listen well, this is no ordinary life growing inside you. Tears welled in Maya's eyes. What am I going to do, Mama Doja? Everyone in the palace is already whispering. I hear them. They think I was careless, that I brought shame. Mama Doja took Maya's hand in hers. Let them talk. Let them say what they will. You must protect that baby. The seas do not give gifts lightly. Suddenly, from the shadows, a voice interrupted them. So it's true. It was Kemi, one of the other palace servants. She was tall, quick-tongued, and known for spreading gossip faster than fire on dry leaves. I heard the cooks talking, but I didn't believe it. Your belly shines, she said, stepping closer. What are you carrying, Maya? A fish. Maya stood up quickly, fear and anger flashing in her eyes. Leave me alone, Kemi. But Kemi was already turning, her voice rising like a market crier. She's glowing. Maya's belly glows. She's carrying a water spirit's child. Maya's heart dropped. By morning, everyone knew. The palace was buzzing. Servants peeked at her from corners, children pointed behind their mothers' wrappers, and even the king's guards kept their distance. Some villagers came with prayers. Others with insults. A few threw palm oil on the ground where she walked, whispering against bad spirits. The king's advisor, Chief Adu, summoned her. Maya knelt before him, shaking. He was a tall man with a staff carved from ebony wood, his face sharp and his eyes full of suspicion. What have you done, girl? He asked coldly. Did you consort with spirits? Did you bring a curse upon this land? I don't know, Maya said softly. I only fell in love. He was a boy with a drum, he was kind. I didn't know. Chief Adu narrowed his eyes. You must leave the palace. What? You are a danger to our king. To this kingdom. Your presence calls the sea's attention. That is never good. You must go, before your child brings calamity. Tears streamed down Maya's cheeks as she was dragged from the palace gates. Mama Doja tried to protest, but even she was silenced. They left Maya at the riverbank with only a small bundle of clothes and the seashell harp. The same place where she had once been found as a baby, alone. As the palace gates closed behind her, Maya looked down at her stomach. The glow was brighter now. Brighter, and steady. The baby was growing, and with every beat of her heart, Maya felt a song rising inside her. A strange, haunting melody only the harp could echo. She sat by the river and plucked the strings. The tune filled the air like mist. And far beneath the water, in the coral fortress of the deep, Prince Kuba woke with a start. He had been dreaming of her again, of her laughter, her eyes, her touch. But this time, he heard her. She was calling him. The harp had awakened something ancient, a bond between the child of tide and soil. And now, a choice had to be made. But deep in the coral fortress, Queen Mother Nia sat on her throne of seashells, her gaze cold and hard. The child must die, she whispered again. It is the law. And so, the storm began to rise. Maya sat alone by the riverbank where the moonlight met the dark water, her bundle of clothes beside her and the shell harp resting gently in her lap. The wind hummed through the tall grasses like whispers from another world. Frogs croaked in the shallows. Crickets sang in the bushes. But all Maya could hear was the silence inside her heart. I have no home, she murmured, brushing a tear from her cheek. No family. No answers. Her belly glowed again. The soft coral light shone gently beneath the fabric of her wrapper, pulsing slowly, like a sleeping heartbeat, like something waiting to be born. She touched it carefully. Are you dreaming, little one? Do you feel lonely too? The harp twitched in her hand. Just once. She blinked. Did you move? She plucked a string. A single note rang out, clear, smooth, but full of mystery. Like water dancing over stone. Then, from the river, a shape stirred. Maya froze. A faint glow bubbled beneath the surface. Slowly, a long dark shape drifted near the shore. Not a fish. Not a crocodile. It moved too gently. Too gracefully. A voice echoed in the wind. Follow the river, child of coral light. Maya jumped to her feet, scanning the trees. Who said that? There was no one. The harp hummed softly in her hand. Not from her touch, but on its own. Follow the river. Her heart raced. The world around her seemed to shift. The moon was brighter. The river wider. The trees taller. Even the shadows danced with strange shapes. It was beginning. The journey she didn't ask for. The story she never expected. She slung her small bundle across her back, wrapped the harp in a strip of cloth, and stepped into the water. It was warm and gentle, wrapping around her legs like a mother's arms. She didn't know where the river would take her. But she had to protect her baby. 3 days later, Maya still walked beside the river, her legs sore, her feet muddy, and her thoughts heavy. She had eaten only wild mangoes and drank from the river itself. Her clothes were damp, her hair knotted, and her belly had grown. The glow still came at night, and the harp still sang faintly whenever the moon rose. But Maya didn't complain. Not once. Because something deep inside her was changing. Not just her body, but her courage. She was no longer the quiet palace servant who scrubbed floors and dreamed of scrolls. She was now a mother. A warrior of love. And a traveler between worlds. That evening, as she crossed a wide plain filled with tall elephant grass, she heard laughter. High-pitched. Giggling. And not human. Maya ducked low. The grass shook ahead. Then she saw them. 3 tiny creatures, no taller than a goat, with blue-green skin, long ears, and wide eyes like water droplets. They wore cloaks made from lily pads and danced around a circle of stones. River spirits. Egbera children, the old tales called them. They saw her. She froze. The creatures tilted their heads, sniffed the air, and suddenly began to laugh again. You smell like sea salt, said the first one. And you carry a light, said the second. A baby light, giggled the third, doing a backflip. I'm just passing through, Maya said quickly, taking a cautious step back. Oh, no, the first spirit said, hopping forward. You're not passing through. You're being called. The second spirit pointed to the harp at her side. That shell is not just a shell. It's a map. A key. A drumbeat to the gate of the sea. Maya clutched the harp tighter. It was a gift. The third Egbera child twirled. Then you're already chosen. The sea remembers its promises. They danced closer, forming a circle around her, spinning and chanting. Tide and soil, drum and flame. You walk the path, you bear the name. What was lost now stirs again. Love unborn shall end the pain. What does that mean? Maya asked. The spirits stopped spinning and looked serious for the first time. It means the Queen of the Sea is waiting, said the first. And not with open arms. The second added, if you want to protect your child, you must go to her. Plead. Fight. Sing. Sing. Maya blinked. The third Egbera child poked the harp. This shell will show the way. Play it beneath moonlight by the Rock of Echoes. The river will open. The Rock of Echoes. Where is that? They all pointed east. 2 days' walk. Through the forest of whispers. Maya nodded slowly. Thank you. But before she could ask more, the spirits leapt into the grass and vanished like smoke. That night, she found shelter beneath a large tamarind tree, her body aching, her spirit weary. She lay beside a small fire, wrapped in her shawl, her hand resting on her glowing belly. Then, a dream came. She stood in a vast underwater temple. Columns made of coral. Walls that shimmered like pearl. And in front of her, seated on a throne carved from whale bone, was Queen Mother Nia. Tall, regal, terrifying. Her voice filled the temple. You dare bring a forbidden child into my waters? Maya trembled. I only love him. That is all. Love is not enough, Nia thundered. Love stole my firstborn. Love drowned my peace. Love must pay. Then the queen raised her trident, and the ocean roared. Maya woke with a cry. She held her harp, heart pounding. The time had come. She must reach the Rock of Echoes. She must face the Queen. She must protect her child, even if it meant losing everything else. The sun had just begun to rise when Maya left the tamarind tree behind and stepped into the Forest of Whispers. A cool mist floated through the air, thick and silvery, curling around the roots like sleeping snakes. The trees stood tall and silent, their branches heavy with moss and vines, their trunks twisted like dancers frozen in mid-move. This forest was no ordinary forest. It was ancient. It was alive. And it was listening. Maya felt it in her bones, the weight of 1,000 stories breathing through the leaves. Every step she took made the forest listen a little more. Every heartbeat made it whisper. She tightened her grip on the harp and whispered, "I don't want to be afraid." But the forest answered her with 1,000 tiny voices. "Then why did you come?" She stopped. "Who's there?" "Who are you?" the voices echoed. "Maya of mud huts and scroll dreams. Maya of moonlight and coral flame. I am." "I'm just a girl," she replied. "A girl trying to protect her child." The trees creaked softly, their leaves rustling like laughter. "Then pass, if you remember." "Remember what?" But the voices had vanished. She looked down and realized that the forest path had disappeared. In every direction, the trees looked the same. She had entered the maze of memory. Maya walked for hours. Sometimes she saw glimpses of people, blurry, flickering shadows of the past. She saw herself as a little girl, washing the king's floors, watching the scholars in their silk robes. She saw her mother, whom she barely remembered, singing by a cooking fire with tears in her eyes. "Are these dreams?" she whispered. "No," said a new voice. It was calm. Gentle. Male. Maya spun around. And there he was. Prince Kuba. But not as she remembered. Here, in the Forest of Whispers, he wore no mask. His skin shimmered faintly with blue and silver, and his eyes held the depth of the ocean itself. Maya gasped. "Kuba." He smiled. "You remember." She stepped forward, reaching out, but when her fingers touched him, he turned to mist. Gone. Maya's knees buckled. "Why did you leave me?" The harp hummed again. Its notes formed a new song, a soft tune that seemed to ripple through the trees. She followed it. Step by step, through the illusions. She passed her childhood. Her laughter. Her pain. She passed the masquerade night, reliving the drums, the lights, the moment she danced with Kuba under the firefly sky. And then she passed the moment she found out she was with child. Tears flowed freely now. But she didn't stop. Not even when the trees began to change. Their bark turned dark. The mist turned black. And the voices came again. "You don't belong here. You are not sea nor soil. You are nothing. Give the baby up. End the burden." Maya clutched her stomach. No. She dropped to her knees and played the harp with trembling fingers. The sound echoed louder than before. It rose like a windstorm, scattering the whispers, burning through the illusions. The forest shuddered. And suddenly, light broke through. Golden sunlight poured into the forest. Before her, the trees parted. And standing in the clearing, carved into the side of a great black rock, was a shape like a giant mouth. The Rock of Echoes. It shimmered with ocean blue veins and silver cracks, pulsing gently with power. Maya approached slowly. She could feel it in the air. This was a place of magic. Of ancient sea laws. Of trials. She sat before the rock and placed the harp in her lap. "Show me the way," she whispered. Then she began to play. A slow, trembling song. Notes rose like soft waves, like the lullaby of a mother rocking her child in the dark. The Rock of Echoes responded. The mouth-shaped crevice began to hum. And then, it opened. A narrow passage formed, glowing with soft blue light. A voice came from within. Maya of both tide and soil, your journey has just begun. Enter if you dare. But know this, what you love most may be the price you pay. Maya looked at her belly, her heart aching with fear and love. Then she stepped into the passage, into the unknown. Beneath her, the path turned to glass. Around her, water flowed upward like streams dancing in the air. Fish swam through the walls. Seaweed curled along the edges like curtains. The sound of the harp still rang in her ears. She was walking beneath the river now, toward the sea. Toward the coral fortress. Toward the queen. And deep within the coral fortress, Queen Mother Nia opened her eyes. She's coming. From the shadows, a figure stepped forward, a warrior of the tide, tall and armored in oyster shells. Shall I stop her, my queen? He asked. Queen Nia didn't blink. No, she said coldly. Let her come. Let her plead. Let her weep. She rose from her throne, her voice echoing like thunder in a storm. But the child must still die. Maya emerged from the glowing tunnel of the Rock of Echoes just as the sun dipped beneath the edge of the world. She found herself standing on a cliff that overlooked the sea, wild and endless, its waters dark and glittering like black silk sprinkled with stars. The salty wind rushed against her face, carrying the sound of crashing waves and distant thunder. Her heart pounded, both from awe and fear. Beneath her feet, a circle of white stones had been laid into the earth in the shape of a spiral. At its center stood a stone pedestal, smooth and hollow on top, perfectly shaped for the shell harp. This was the gate. The undersea gate. She knew it. Felt it. The way a mother senses when a child stirs in the womb. This place had been waiting for her. The harp glowed faintly in her hands. She unwrapped it carefully, placed it into the hollow, and stepped back. For a moment, nothing happened. Then, the sea answered. The wind stopped. The waves paused mid-crash. And the clouds above swirled into a spiral, mimicking the stones below. The harp played itself. A deep, rich melody that echoed across the cliff, through the wind, and down into the depths of the ocean. Suddenly, the spiral of white stones lit up, one by one, in rhythm with the harp's song. The sea split open before her, parting like a curtain drawn by invisible hands. A glowing path of water and coral stone steps now led down, down, down into the depths. Maya's eyes widened. She clutched her belly, her shawl fluttering in the sea wind. Is this real? The harp pulsed softly, as if whispering, "Go." Maya nodded. For you, little one. She stepped forward. Down the path. Into the sea. As Maya descended the coral stone staircase, the world changed around her. The deeper she went, the less she could hear the sound of the air above. Instead, her ears filled with the gentle hum of water. The sea didn't drown her or weigh her down, instead, it welcomed her. Tiny lights danced around her feet, silver eels no longer than her finger. Colorful fish swam in slow, curious circles above her head. The sea creatures were watching her. Guarding her. Judging her. And then, the guardians arrived. From behind coral towers on either side of the staircase, 3 giant sea turtles emerged. Each one was larger than a goat, their shells covered in glowing runes. Their eyes sparkled with ancient intelligence, and they floated silently, like living statues. They blocked her path. Maya stepped back, clutching her harp. The turtles did not move. Then, a voice rang out, not from the turtles' mouths, but from the water around her. A voice that sounded like both a drumbeat and a whisper. Only the true may pass. Only the brave may enter. Only the one who bears both tide and soil may speak the words of crossing. Maya looked around. What words? The turtle's eyes flared with light. The voice echoed again. Speak the vow of the tide. Speak the truth of the child. Speak the name of the love you seek. The harp vibrated. Maya closed her eyes. She breathed deeply. And she spoke. By the blood of the river and the breath of the sky, I vow to protect what grows within me. This child, born of sea and earth, is a promise, not a curse. I am Maya, daughter of dust and dreams. And the name of the one I love is Kuba. The sea shimmered. The turtles bowed. And the coral gates parted. Beyond the gates lay a tunnel of living coral, pink, purple, gold, twisting downward in a spiral. Small creatures, glowing like fireflies, lit the way. Strange plants waved in slow motion, releasing bubbles that hummed like wind chimes. Maya walked carefully, one hand on the harp, the other on her stomach. She passed murals etched into the coral, pictures of merfolk with tridents, battles with sea serpents, and a crowned queen holding a shell that looked exactly like the one in Maya's hand. "The queen," she whispered. Suddenly, the harp played a single note. A door opened in the coral wall. Maya stepped through, and gasped. She stood on the edge of a vast undersea canyon. Towers of pearl and coral rose in the distance. Bridges made of kelp and bone stretched between spires. Schools of fish moved like dancers in patterns across the open water. Glowing jellyfish floated like lanterns in a night sky. And in the heart of it all stood the coral fortress. A castle carved into a giant coral mountain, glowing with a light that pulsed like a heartbeat. Maya felt her knees weaken. It's beautiful. But her awe was short-lived. From the fortress gates, a group of armored merfolk swam toward her, each carrying a trident and wearing helmets made of fishbone and shell. They were not smiling. One of them pointed at her harp. "You are the land girl who carries the queen's sorrow." Maya swallowed. "I come in peace. I come for my child." The merfolk leader nodded slowly. "Then come. But know this, you are not welcome here. Your child is feared." "I won't let anyone harm them," Maya said firmly. The leader's eyes glowed with blue fire. "Even if that means defying the queen herself." Maya raised her chin. "Even then." As the merfolk guards led her toward the coral fortress, Maya looked back one last time, at the path she had walked, the water she had entered, the sky she had left behind. She had crossed the border between worlds. And ahead of her, in the heart of the sea, Queen Mother Nia waited. The grand doors of the coral fortress opened with a sound like a deep sigh, old, tired, and echoing through the ocean's belly. Maya stepped into a hall unlike anything she had ever imagined. The throne chamber was a circle carved inside a mountain of coral and pearl. Giant pillars twisted like sea serpents held the roof aloft, and every inch of the walls shimmered with mosaics made of crushed seashells and glowing scales. Fish of every color swam overhead in swirling currents, lighting the chamber with soft, shifting colors, blue, gold, green, and red. But it was the queen's throne that made Maya stop breathing. It sat atop a raised dais made of a giant clam shell, its surface polished to a mirror. Behind it, a curtain of flowing seaweed danced in slow waves. The throne itself was carved from bone coral and inlaid with pearls the size of mangoes. And seated on it was a woman so regal, the ocean itself seemed to pause in her presence. Queen Mother Nia. Her skin was the color of deep-sea stone, blue-black with a shimmer like wet obsidian. Her hair, long and braided with golden shells, floated behind her like a royal banner. Her eyes were sharp and silver, glowing like moonlight caught in water. Around her neck, she wore a collar of shark teeth. In her hand, she held a staff made from the spine of a sea dragon. Her voice, when she finally spoke, was calm but heavy, like thunder rolling over the sea. "You are the land girl." Maya bowed her head. "Yes, my queen. I am Maya of Amuda village." "You crossed the threshold of tide and entered my kingdom without permission," the queen said. "I was led by the shell harp. By your son's gift." Queen Nia's fingers tightened on her staff. A wave of murmurs flowed through the chamber. All around the room, sea spirits sat upon floating stones, old merfolk with beards like coral branches, crab folk with gleaming eyes, jelly priests in translucent robes. The Council of the Deep. A fat fish spirit with golden eyes sneered. A land child, glowing with ocean flame. Unnatural. A crab woman with jeweled claws added, "It is dangerous. She must not be allowed to give birth beneath our waves." Maya felt the heat rise in her face. But she stood tall. I came to protect my child. Not to beg. Not to run. I came because I love this child. Because this child is part of me. And part of your prince. Queen Nia's eyes flashed. My son, she said slowly, broke an ancient vow. 50 years ago, I lost my firstborn to the surface. My daughter, Nyara, who loved a fisherman. She was hunted. Killed. Her child lost. Her voice cracked, but only slightly. My heart has not mended since. And now, another child. Another broken rule. Another danger. She stood. The chamber fell silent. I will not lose another. And I will not welcome a child cursed by both sea and soil. Maya stepped forward. The guards moved, but Queen Nia held up her hand. You speak of pain, your majesty, Maya said gently. But do you think I have none? She placed her hand on her belly. I did not know Kuba was a merman. I did not seek this. But I felt something powerful, something pure. He loved me. And I loved him. That cannot be cursed. Another round of murmurs rose. One elder sea priest leaned forward. The child glows, they say. Coral light from its mother's womb. This has never happened before. It is a sign, someone else whispered. A sign of prophecy. Queen Nia raised her staff. The chamber fell quiet again. Let us see this glow. Here. Now. Maya hesitated. She slowly pulled aside the shawl wrapped around her belly. The water shimmered, and then, from beneath her skin, a soft coral light bloomed. Gentle, warm, steady. The very same light the sea used to show her the path. The harp, still wrapped at her side, began to hum. A voice, deep and ancient, rolled through the chamber, not from any mouth, but from the sea itself. The child of tide and soil shall rise when love walks unafraid. A gasp spread through the council. Queen Nia's eyes widened. The old prophecy. One of the oldest merfolk, a blind singer with starfish eyes, drifted forward. Yes, my queen, he said in a voice like foam. The prophecy of the rift. A child born of both realms, neither fully sea nor fully land. A child who could heal the wound left by war, by fear, by death. The queen's jaw tightened. I do not care for prophecy. I care for my people's safety. But Maya's voice was steady. Then test me. Try me. Judge me. But know this, I will not leave my child behind. If you must take something from me, take it. But not my baby. Queen Nia studied her long and hard. What would you offer in exchange for your child's life? Maya was silent for a moment. Her hands trembled. Then she said, take my most cherished memory. Gasps echoed again. The sea itself seemed to hold its breath. Queen Nia narrowed her eyes. And what memory is that? Maya swallowed hard. The night I first danced with Kuba. The night I laughed without fear. If I must lose it, I will. The queen sat slowly, her face unreadable. A great love, she said at last, demands a great price. She lifted her staff and pointed it at Maya's forehead. Then let the price be paid. A beam of blue-white light surged from the staff. It touched Maya gently, and suddenly, her knees buckled. She saw Kuba's mask, the music, the fireflies, the feeling of his hand in hers, and then, nothing. It was gone. That memory. That joy. Erased. Maya cried without knowing why. The harp fell silent. Queen Nia lowered her staff. The child may live, she said, her voice softer now. But the world will still not welcome it. This will not be easy. I never asked for easy, Maya whispered. Only for a chance. Queen Nia turned to her guards. Let her be taken to the Shell Keep. There she shall rest, until the child is born. And so Maya, trembling and broken-hearted, was led away through the glowing halls of the coral fortress. But somewhere in the sea's deepest heart, ancient currents stirred. Because Maya's sacrifice had awakened something. The prophecy had begun. Maya was led through tunnels lit by jellyfish lanterns and walls carved with sea song runes. The guards spoke no more, and Maya no longer wept. She moved like someone half asleep, her mind a swirling fog. She no longer remembered the night she had danced with Kuba under the stars. She had offered that memory, her most cherished, for her child. And now there was a hollow place in her heart where joy had once lived. The shell keep rose at the edge of the coral fortress, spiraling upward like a nautilus shell. It was made of layers of glassy sea stone and shimmering pearl, and it hummed with a deep, watery sound, a lullaby sung by the ocean itself. The guards opened its great spiral door and motioned for her to enter. Inside, the room glowed softly, like moonlight passing through milk. A bed made of sea moss floated above a shallow pool of warm water. Shelves carved from coral held strange, glowing fruits and jars filled with liquid stars. A gentle current flowed through the chamber, carrying the scent of salt, citrus, and something older, something that felt like magic. "This shall be your room," said a soft voice. Maya turned to see a figure glide into the chamber. She was tall and graceful, with skin like pearl and fins trailing behind her like veils. Her hair was long and braided with beads of light. In her arms she carried a basket of woven seaweed and silken cloth. "I am Sula," the woman said. "I serve the queen, but I am also a mother. I will help you." Maya nodded slowly. "Thank you." Sula set down the basket and unwrapped its contents, clothes made from kelp fiber and coral thread, glowing candles in glass shells, and a small harp made of mother of pearl. "Time moves differently here," Sula said gently, helping Maya to sit. "You will carry your child for 9 moons, but here beneath the waves, that time will pass like a whisper. The sea remembers. It protects." Maya touched her belly. The faint coral glow still shone through her skin. "The baby," she whispered, "is it healthy?" Sula smiled. "Strong. And special. The light is not a sickness. It is a sign." "A sign of what?" Sula's face became serious. "Of a bridge being built. A bridge between worlds long divided." That night, Maya lay in the moss bed, surrounded by the soft hum of the shell keep. But sleep did not come easily. The sea pressed in on all sides, quiet and watchful. Then, dreams began. Strange, shifting visions that felt both real and unreal. In the first dream, she stood on dry land again, only the land was cracked and dry, and people wandered, lost, calling for water. Above them, a storm gathered, but no rain came. Then, a child stepped forward, her child, glowing, radiant, barefoot. The child raised their hands, and water burst from the ground like a spring, flooding the land in silver blue light. The people wept and danced. In the second dream, she saw Queen Nia, younger, laughing in a coral garden with a child, Nyara, the queen's lost daughter. Suddenly, spears pierced the water. A net closed around Nyara. The queen screamed, but no one came to help. A wound opened in the sea. In the third dream, Maya floated in a bubble of air far above the earth. She saw both land and sea, separate, like two broken halves of a shell. But in the center stood her child, and around the child danced fish and birds, trees and coral, stars and shells. A new song filled the world. She awoke with tears on her cheeks and a whisper in her ear. "You must prepare." Days passed. Maya was not a prisoner, but she was not free. She was watched, always. Guards patrolled the halls. Merfolk stared when she swam through the coral courtyards. Some whispered blessings. Others whispered curses. Sula remained kind, bringing her food, teaching her sea breathing, and telling stories of the ancient Mare Queens. One evening, Maya asked, "Why did Kuba go to the surface?" Sula tilted her head. "He was chosen by the moontide. Every 50 years, a royal mare must walk the land, to learn, to witness, to understand. He chose to be a masked musician. He was curious. Reckless. Did he love me? Maya asked. Sula looked at her with gentle eyes. Yes. Fiercely. But he left, Maya said. He returned without warning. Sula sighed. Because the sea called him back. There are rules, Maya. Ancient ones. He had to return before the next tide turn, or he would be sealed above forever. Maya's heart ached. I wish I could remember how we loved. What it felt like. Sula took her hand. Memory fades. But love leaves footprints. You follow them, even when you forget why. Soon, the signs began. Maya's belly grew heavy. The coral glow deepened to a golden pink. Her dreams grew more vivid. The harp, silent for days, began to sing again, soft lullabies that echoed through the keep. Even the queen noticed. She is nearing the time, Queen Nia said one morning, gazing from her throne. And yet the ocean remains unsettled. The council of the deep gathered once more. Some cried for exile. Others demanded the child be taken to the abyssal temple for testing. But the harp, now fully awake, played a single, clear note that silenced them all. The tide cannot be turned back. In her chamber, Maya lay in the glow of the shell lanterns, breathing slow and deep. She spoke softly to the child within. You are the song I almost forgot. But now I remember. Even if I never recall the dance, I will never forget this light. You are loved. You are not alone. The harp answered with a chord that shimmered like sunrise. And far beyond the keep, hidden in the darkest coral trench, something ancient stirred, an old enemy of the sea, a shadow long buried. For every child born of light, the darkness waits. And the child of Maya and Kuba would soon be born. The sea was restless. In the deepest part of the coral fortress, the walls of the shell keep pulsed with waves of color, pinks, blues, and golds, like the inside of a living pearl. The harp sang a lullaby in a voice no one taught it, a melody older than memory. Maya was no longer afraid. She was ready. Sula stood beside her, wrapping sea moss around Maya's shoulders, her face calm though her hands trembled slightly. The time has come, she whispered. Maya floated in the birthing pool, its waters warm and glowing. Her belly shone like a coral sunrise. Every breath she took stirred the water into spirals of golden light. Her body was heavy, but her spirit felt light, as if something greater than herself now moved through her. Outside, the sea creatures gathered, stingrays, starfish, glowing fish, and even gentle sharks. The walls of the keep shimmered with their shapes as they hovered beyond the glass, watching with reverent eyes. Sula placed a hand on Maya's forehead and chanted softly in the language of the tide. Let the sea remember. Let the shell hear. Let the spirit bloom. Then, a pain rippled through Maya's belly, sharp but not cruel, deep but not frightening. She gasped, and the harp played a sharp, echoing note. The lights in the walls dimmed, then flared bright. It's starting, Sula said. Another wave came, and Maya gripped the sides of the pool. Her body arched like the curve of a shell. With every cry, the sea sang louder. With every breath, the harp wept notes of beauty. Then, one final surge. And silence. Then, a sound never before heard in the coral fortress. A cry. Not the wail of a human baby. Not the song of a mere child. Something in between. Something both and neither. A voice of both land and sea. Sula gasped and caught the newborn in her arms. The child shimmered like moonlight on water. Tiny fins fluttered along its shoulders, and its eyes opened, deep as the ocean, golden as sunlight. The harp played a triumphant chord. The water around them danced with joy. Maya reached out, tears rolling down her cheeks. Is it? Sula nodded, breathless. A girl. She is luminous. The baby floated into Maya's arms and cooed. And then, every shell in the coral fortress began to hum. From the royal throne to the farthest sea cave. Even Queen Nia felt it. She rose from her throne, clutched the stone armrest, and whispered, "It has happened. The tide has turned." News traveled like a current. Whispers rushed through the sea. The child of the land and sea has been born. She glows with the light of both worlds. The prophecy may be real. Queen Nia summoned her advisors. The council of the deep returned. Some wore expressions of fear. Others wept in wonder. "She must be named," said one. "The name will mark her path." Sula stood in the center of the council hall, holding the child swaddled in woven sea silk. Maya, still weak but radiant, was carried on a floating coral cradle. She placed a hand on the harp. "I will name her Zara," Maya said. "It means blossom of the deep in my mother's tongue." Zara blinked, and the harp played a single, clear note. It echoed across the halls. It passed through the trenches. It stirred creatures sleeping for centuries. It reached the abyssal ruins, ancient, forbidden. And it awakened something dark. That night, as the coral fortress celebrated with currents of dancing lights and songs sung by whales, a shadow moved near the edge of the world. A creature cloaked in kelp and bone, half spirit, half flesh, watched from afar. Its eyes glowed red like underwater fire. It had waited long. The prophecy had once spoken of a child of both tide and soil, a healer of the broken sea. But that prophecy had been locked away, hidden after the war between land and sea. No one dared mention it aloud. No one, except the old seer who once sat in the Cave of Whispers. And that seer had been banished. This creature, known only as Balo, had once served Queen Nia, long before her daughter, Nyara, was lost to the surface. Balo had believed the child of two worlds would one day return peace. But after Nyara's death, the queen changed. She outlawed the old songs. She burned the tide scrolls. She sealed the prophecy. And Balo had vanished. Until now. Now the child was born. Now Zara breathed. And Balo would return. Not for war, but for awakening. Meanwhile, Maya sat with Zara in the shell keep, brushing sea silk over her tiny head. The glow of the baby lit up the room like a warm lantern. Zara looked up at her mother and reached out a hand. Suddenly, visions filled Maya's eyes, memories not hers. She saw ancient coral cities before the wars. She saw land and sea together in peace. She saw her daughter, older, walking upon land, swimming through sea, speaking to animals and people alike. She saw a world made whole. Then the vision faded. Zara smiled. And Maya whispered, "You are more than a child. You are a beginning." But peace never comes easily. Far below, in the sunless trench, Balo gathered the shards of a forbidden relic. A shell-shaped crown, cracked and hidden for centuries. A crown meant for a child of land and sea. And Balo spoke, voice deep and echoing. She must choose her path. Or the sea will drown in darkness. In the quiet hours of the glowing night, the coral fortress seemed to sleep. Jellyfish lanterns drifted lazily in the currents, and soft whale songs echoed faintly through the trenches. But in the deepest layer of the fortress, where even light hesitated to go, something stirred. A shadow moved with ancient grace. Balo, the outcast spirit keeper, had returned to the realm he once served. His body, part bone and part coral, was wrapped in drifting kelp. His eyes burned not with fire, but with the oldest memory of the sea, rage and sorrow twisted into flame. He moved unnoticed through cracks in the fortress wall, through old tunnels sealed long ago after the war between merfolk and surface dwellers. Only one guard sensed something. A seahorse sentinel flickered its fins and turned toward the dark. A whisper brushed past it like a chill. "I am not here to harm, little one, not yet." Above, in the shell keep, Zara was sleeping in Maya's arms, glowing gently like a coral moon. Maya herself was awake, her eyes fixed on the harp, which now strummed by itself in intervals, short, humming notes, as though it was nervous. Sula entered, carrying a bowl of warm kelp soup. "You haven't eaten," she said softly. Maya looked up. "Something's coming. I don't know what, but the sea, it feels tight." like it's holding its breath. Sula set the bowl down and walked to the window, staring into the water beyond. Many eyes are watching now. News of Zara's birth has stirred things that should have stayed sleeping. Maya looked down at her child. She's so small. How can something this small cause such waves? Sula turned slowly. Because power doesn't wait to grow. It wakes. Suddenly, the harp let out a loud clang, one sharp note that cut the silence. The water in the pool turned colder. Maya rose to her feet, clutching Zara close. Sula. Then the spiral door opened by itself, creaking, groaning as if struggling against the very sea. A figure floated into the room, tall, cloaked in darkness, seaweed trailing behind him like a royal robe. His face was not monstrous, but it was not comforting either. Part human skull, part coral mask, glowing eyes, and fins like rusted blades. Balo had arrived. Sula stepped in front of Maya. You are not welcome here. Balo did not raise his voice. And yet, I am here. You remember me, do you not, Shell Weaver? Sula's lips trembled. I remember a healer who was exiled for speaking prophecy. Balo floated closer. And I remember a queen who sealed truth in a tomb of silence. Maya clutched Zara tighter. The baby stirred, opening her golden eyes, and as they met Balo's glowing gaze, the harp played a soft, echoing chord. Balo paused. His voice softened. She sees. Even now, she sees. Maya stepped forward. Who are you? Balo turned his full gaze on her. I am Balo of the Forgotten Deep, Spirit Walker, Tide Seer, and Keeper of the Prophecy of the Two Currents. He extended a hand, not in threat, but in offering. She is the one, child of soil. The bridge born in glow. I have come not to take, but to awaken. Sula was wary. What do you mean, awaken? Balo's cloak of kelp unraveled, and from it he pulled a small, cracked relic. A crown, shaped like a shell and half covered in coral. The shell crown of unity, he whispered. It was made for the child who would heal the rift. When land and sea still danced as lovers. Before betrayal. Before fear. He stepped toward Maya and held it out. It belongs to her. Maya stared at it. But she's just a baby. Balo nodded. Yet already, she sings. She dreams. She glows. The sea listens. The land calls. And soon, both will come knocking. Sula stepped forward, alarmed. The queen, she will never allow this. Balo's voice dropped low. Then the queen must remember, or risk losing everything again. Zara cooed in Maya's arms, then reached out one tiny hand, touching the cracked crown. At her touch, the relic flared with light, soft and golden, like the first light of dawn over calm waters. Balo smiled. Not with victory, but with relief. She accepts. The harp strummed 3 notes, past, present, future, and the sea outside changed. Currents twisted. Waves rose. And far above, near the coastal cliffs of the surface world, a lighthouse flickered out for the first time in 100 years. Meanwhile, in her throne room, Queen Nia felt the change. She dropped her goblet of moon wine. The shell crown, she breathed. It sings again. She turned to her seers. Send scouts. Find the source. I want the relic back. I want Balo, dead or chained. But deep down, Queen Nia knew. The tide was rising. Not the ocean's tide. The tide of fate. And nothing could stop it now. Back in the shell keep, Balo turned to leave. There are others who will come. Not all will be kind. I will return when she is ready. Maya called after him. Wait. Why do you care so much? He paused at the door. Because I, too, was once born of 2 worlds, and no one came for me. Then, like a current fading into shadow, Balo was gone. That night, Maya sat awake, holding Zara close. She placed the cracked crown beside the harp. Zara, she whispered. The sea wants you. The land will want you. But I will always be here. And you are not alone. Zara's glow brightened. Somewhere far away, thunder echoed through the deep. And beneath the Gulf of Xander, in ancient prisons carved before memory, things long sealed began to stir. The coral walls of the shell keep quivered under the pressure of something heavy, something ancient. The air inside the fortress had grown thicker, charged with the energy of unseen currents. Maya stood before the great chamber, holding Zara in her arms. The baby had grown, and her glow now flickered like a heartbeat, strong, steady, and radiant. Yet Maya could sense it too, the growing tension that came with Zara's very presence. The news of the child's birth had spread like wildfire across the land and sea, but none had expected it to reach the depths of Queen Nia's palace so swiftly. At the heart of the palace, beneath towering spires of glowing coral and overgrown seaweed, the trial of the tide was preparing to begin. Maya had heard the whispers. The trial was an ancient ritual. It tested a merchild's right to walk the world, both above the waters and beneath. The child's spirit would be measured against the currents of the sea itself. To the queen, it was a rite of passage. To Maya, it was a fight for survival. Queen Nia, draped in royal shells and sea silk, sat on her throne, eyes burning with intensity. Her courtiers and nobles were gathered around her, the flickering light of giant kelp fires casting eerie shadows across their faces. Maya felt the weight of their gazes, felt the sting of judgment in the cold sea air. Sula stood at her side, her usual calm demeanor now replaced by a quiet tension. Maya of the surface, you come before me, the queen's voice echoed through the hall. You bring with you a child whose very existence defies the laws of nature. The child of both tide and soil. Her eyes flicked to Zara, glowing softly in Maya's arms. The queen's gaze was hard as stone. You and your child stand at the edge of a great precipice. The sea has known peace and fury. But you bring hope and destruction in the same breath. Maya stepped forward, her heart racing but her voice steady. I ask for nothing but to protect my daughter. She is not a curse, your majesty. She is a promise. The queen's expression softened only for a moment, then returned to ice. A promise, she whispered, as if tasting the word. What promise could a child like this hold? She is as much a creature of myth as she is flesh. What will she do when the sea calls her home? When the waves rise, will she fight for her people or drown them in her power? Maya looked down at Zara, who was staring at the queen, her golden eyes unblinking. The glow from the baby intensified, casting a soft light across the chamber. She will choose, Maya said, her voice a little firmer. And I will teach her. The queen did not respond immediately. Her eyes, sharp as a spear, studied Maya carefully. Then she looked down at the floor, her fingers twisting a golden trident ring on her hand. Then it will be decided in the trial of the tide. The hall went silent. The name of the trial hung in the air, like a heavy storm cloud. Sula moved to Maya's side, whispering urgently, the trial is not just a test of strength, Maya. It is a test of the child's soul. There are legends about it, of children who never returned. You must be careful. The sea tests more than just their abilities. It tests their heart. Maya's breath caught in her throat, but she nodded. I will not let them take her. I won't let anything happen to her. The ceremonial drums beat. A procession began to move through the hall, merfolk priests and warriors, each holding a golden shell and chanting ancient songs. The light from the sea fire torches flickered in rhythm with the music. Maya's heart thundered in her chest as the sacred court prepared for the trial. The walls seemed to shiver, as if the sea itself was drawing breath. Outside, the sea had grown restless. A storm was brewing. Dark clouds gathered on the horizon, swirling in violent spirals. Thunder rumbled under the water, and the sky above the Gulf of Xander was tinged with an unnatural purple. The sea, its currents and tides, began to churn with ferocity. The trial had begun. The great chamber doors swung open, and they were led into the trial circle, an ancient arena carved into the heart of the coral fortress. It was a place where merfolk had fought and tested their strength for centuries. At the center was a large pool, its waters dark and swirling with mysterious energy. In the middle of the pool, a whirlpool spun, its vortex glowing with strange, phosphorescent light. The trial would begin. Maya's breath caught in her throat. Queen Nia stood at the edge of the arena, her eyes narrowed. "Maya," she said coldly. "You and your child will face the first of 3 trials. The trial of the whirlpool. If Zara's soul is strong enough to endure the pull of the sea, she will be deemed worthy. If she fails," the queen's voice trailed off, a warning more than a threat. Maya stepped forward, clutching Zara tightly. Sula was at her side. "Stay close to me. Don't let her go." As they entered the circle, the water seemed to rise and fall with each breath. The whirlpool pulsed with energy, a living thing, watching them. Maya could feel it, the way the sea seemed to speak to Zara. The moment they stepped into the pool, the water rose to their waists. Zara's glow illuminated the chamber, casting long shadows across the walls. Suddenly, the whirlpool grew stronger, pulling at them with an invisible force. Maya gasped as the current yanked at her legs, the water swirling violently around her. The waves reached higher, threatening to pull them both under. Zara's eyes shone brighter. Maya gripped Zara tighter, her fingers trembling. "Stay with me, my child. Do not fear." And then, Zara reached out. Her small hand glowed brighter than ever before. The whirlpool stilled. The water's pull eased. The glowing light from Zara grew stronger, as if she was the very pulse of the ocean itself. Maya's heart leaped as the whirlpool calmed, its spinning slowing to a gentle swirl. The queen's voice echoed through the arena. "It seems the child has passed the first test." Maya held her breath. "What now?" The queen's eyes narrowed. "The second test. The trial of the deep. You and your child will journey to the abyss. There, Zara must face the test of her courage. If she proves worthy, she will return. If not," the queen's voice trailed off once more. Sula's face tightened. "The abyss." "Yes," the queen replied. "The deepest, most dangerous part of the sea. Where no one has gone and returned unchanged." The deep, cavernous walls of the coral fortress seemed to close in as Maya and Zara stood before the gateway to the abyss. The eerie darkness that stretched beyond the entrance was unlike anything they had seen before. It was as though the sea itself held its breath, and every creature within the water had paused in anticipation of what was about to unfold. The waters of the abyss were dark and still, more silent than the deep caverns that led into them. There were no fish here. No currents to guide them. Just shadows that stretched endlessly into the unknown. Maya's heart pounded in her chest as she held Zara close, the baby's light flickering like a distant star. She glanced nervously at Sula, who stood by her side, the light from her sea armor barely enough to illuminate the path ahead. "You must walk the abyss alone, Maya," the queen's voice boomed, cold and unyielding. "But your child, Zara, will guide you. She is the one chosen to face this challenge, not you." Maya's eyes widened. What does that mean? How can she face this alone? The queen's gaze was unyielding. "It means that your child must confront the very heart of the abyss. She will not return until she has faced her true self, until she has walked the deepest corners of the sea and emerged whole. This is the only way she will be deemed worthy of life above and below." Maya's breath caught in her throat. "I can't let her go alone. She's only a child." Sula placed a hand on Maya's shoulder, her face pale with concern. "There's nothing you can do to stop it. This is the way of the sea, Maya. It is her path to take." The queen nodded curtly, signaling for the trial to begin. "It is time." The gates of the abyss swung open, revealing a narrow, winding path that seemed to disappear into the depths. The water was so dark that it appeared like a bottomless well. Waves of pressure seemed to push against Maya's chest as she watched Zara's golden glow flicker in the distance. Sula looked at Maya. "You must trust her, Maya. Zara is not like other children. She is born of the tides, and those who are born of both soil and tide are never weak." With that, Sula gently pushed Maya towards the opening. Maya hesitated for a moment, her heart aching at the thought of sending her daughter into such danger, but she knew there was no turning back. "Zara," Maya whispered, tears filling her eyes, "be strong. Be brave." Zara looked up at her, her golden eyes glimmering. The child's glow dimmed slightly but held steady. The baby stretched her tiny arms out towards the abyss. Maya watched, helpless, as Zara floated forward, guided by her innate connection to the sea. The glow from her body lit the path ahead, the water parting before her as if the sea itself was making room for the child of prophecy. The journey into the abyss was slow, but the deeper they went, the more intense the air became. It was as if every wave carried whispers, ancient whispers, from those long lost to time. The deeper they ventured, the louder these whispers grew, becoming a deafening roar in Maya's ears. Zara's light flickered, but it never went out. Her golden eyes shone like beacons, cutting through the darkness. Suddenly, the water began to swirl violently around them, like a vortex opening beneath their feet. A voice, ancient and deep as the sea, echoed through the water, reverberating in Maya's mind. "Turn back, child of the tides. Turn back, or the sea will take what belongs to it." Maya gasped, clutching Zara close. "No. I won't let you take her." But Zara, even as a child, didn't flinch. Her glow became brighter, and the swirling waters around them calmed. Then, the voice came again, this time more insistent. "You will never return from the abyss, little one. There is no escape from the depths. No one who has entered this place has left unchanged. The sea remembers." Maya felt herself trembling. "Zara, don't listen to it. Please." But Zara's tiny voice, soft as a whisper, answered the sea. "I am of the sea. I am of the earth. I do not fear you." The waters parted, and suddenly, the darkness cleared. Ahead of them stood a massive sea creature, a gigantic, ancient serpent of the deep, its eyes glowing with a fierce light. The creature's scales shimmered like the dark ocean itself, and its mouth was wide open, revealing rows of teeth like jagged coral. Maya recoiled in fear. "What is that thing?" Sula's voice came from behind her. "The guardian of the abyss. Kayuvi, the serpent of silence. No one enters the abyss without facing it." Maya looked down at Zara, whose small body shone brighter than ever. The serpent, its eyes locked onto the child, did not move. It was as if it was waiting. Zara extended a tiny hand toward the serpent, her fingers glowing with light. And then, something extraordinary happened. The serpent stopped moving. It lowered its head, and its glowing eyes seemed to soften. It was as though Zara's light had reached something deep within it, something ancient, something forgotten. The sea serpent let out a low growl, but it was no longer menacing. It shifted slightly and revealed a path forward, a narrow passage beneath it that led deeper into the abyss. Maya's heart pounded in her chest. "Is it allowing us through?" Sula nodded. "Zara has passed the test. She has shown courage. The serpent of the abyss does not let anyone pass unless they have proven their strength." Zara's golden glow illuminated the path ahead. Without a moment's hesitation, Maya stepped forward, following her daughter as they continued on their journey deeper into the abyss. As they entered the passage, the water around them seemed to grow colder, the darkness more oppressive. Yet, Zara's glow was a steady beacon in the depths, leading them through the winding tunnels. In the distance, Maya could hear the faint sound of chanting, a sound so ancient that it almost seemed to come from the very heart of the sea itself. Then, they reached a cavern so vast it felt like the world had opened up to them. The air was heavy with power, and at the center of the cavern stood an ancient altar, covered in moss and seaweed. A massive crystal, glowing with a pale blue light, rested atop the altar. Zara floated towards it, her glow intensifying as she approached. The crystal pulsed in time with the child's light. Suddenly, the voice of the sea came again, louder now. "You have faced the trials of the abyss. But the final trial is within you." The water swirled violently once more, and Maya felt the overwhelming presence of the sea press against her chest. The true trial was not the serpent, nor the waters, but the challenge within Zara's heart. The air in the cavern was thick, heavy with anticipation. Maya stood frozen at the edge of the ancient altar, her gaze fixed on the glowing crystal that now pulsed in rhythm with Zara's golden light. Her breath felt shallow, as if the very air was thickening, pressing down on her chest. Zara, despite her small size, floated gracefully toward the crystal. The child's golden glow intensified, filling the cavern with a soft, radiant light that danced across the walls. Maya held her breath, watching as her daughter reached out with tiny hands, her fingers brushing against the cool surface of the crystal. And then, the sea spoke. "Zara, child of the tides, daughter of the earth, you are standing on the threshold of your true self. The path you choose now will shape your future. But beware, the power you hold comes with a price." Maya felt her heart skip a beat. She wanted to reach out to Zara, to hold her close, but she knew that this was the moment they had been preparing for. The trial wasn't just about physical strength or courage, it was about choice. A choice Zara had to make alone. The voice continued, its tone both loving and foreboding. "In you flows the blood of both land and sea. A child of prophecy, born to heal the rift between two worlds. But power, when misused, can destroy what it touches. Will you bring peace, or will you drown the world in your fury?" Maya stepped forward, but her legs felt like stone. She opened her mouth to speak, but no words came out. She was helpless, there was nothing she could do but watch as Zara stood on the brink of a destiny that was both hers and the sea's. The glowing crystal began to hum, its resonance vibrating in the very marrow of Maya's bones. Zara's small form shone brighter and brighter, and Maya could see the energy building around her daughter. The light was so intense now that it felt as though the cavern itself was alive, pulsing with the power of the sea. The waters around them began to stir, swirling in violent waves. The ancient voice echoed through the cavern again. "Choose wisely, Zara, for the final test is not one of courage or strength. It is a test of heart. What will you become? The savior, or the destroyer? The healer, or the harbinger of doom?" The waters rose higher, churning with force, but Zara did not flinch. Her tiny hand reached out to the crystal once more, and the air grew colder still. Maya watched, her heart racing, as Zara's glow intensified, and then... a vision. The crystal shimmered with a soft blue light, and before Maya's eyes, the world seemed to melt away. The cavern faded, and in its place, she saw a vast, sprawling ocean, dark and stormy. The waves were enormous, crashing against each other with the power of 1,000 storms. And in the center of this chaos stood Zara, no longer a child, but a figure of pure light, radiating with the strength of the sea itself. But something else was there, a shadow. A dark figure, wrapped in swirling black currents, rose from the depths. It was tall, its eyes glowing red with anger, its mouth twisted into a cruel smile. It reached out toward Zara, its hands crackling with dark energy. The vision shifted again. This time, Maya saw a peaceful village by the shore, Umyuko, her home, bathed in the soft light of dawn. But the village was surrounded by rising waters, waves crashing against the land, flooding everything in their path. People screamed as the waters rose, drowning their homes, their livelihoods, their very lives. And there, standing at the edge of the village, was Zara, her golden light flickering in the storm, her small hands reaching out as though trying to stop the flood. But it was too late. The waters overwhelmed everything. Maya gasped. She wanted to scream, to run to her daughter, but she could not. She was rooted to the spot, unable to move. The vision shifted again, and this time, she saw Prince Kuba, standing on the edge of a cliff by the sea, his eyes searching the horizon. He looked lost, as though he was waiting for something, waiting for Zara, waiting for her to make her choice. Suddenly, the vision shattered. The crystal's light dimmed, and the waters around them fell still. Zara's golden glow flickered before settling into a soft, steady light. She stood before the altar, her tiny hands still touching the crystal, her eyes wide with wonder. The air around her had cleared, and the storm in the cavern had passed. But the silence was heavy. The air was thick with the weight of the choices that had been presented to her. Maya's voice trembled as she whispered, "Zara, what did you see? What did you choose?" Zara turned to her mother, her eyes shining with the wisdom of the ocean itself. I chose to be both, Mama. The sea and the earth. The light and the dark. Maya felt a shiver run down her spine. She didn't fully understand what Zara meant, but she knew it was something powerful, something that could change everything. And then, from the shadows of the cavern, a figure stepped forward. It was Kayuvi, the sea serpent. Its massive form loomed over them, but there was no threat in its gaze. Instead, its eyes were filled with something like respect. The child has passed, Kayuvi rumbled in its deep, resonant voice. She has chosen the path of balance. She will be the bridge between land and sea. The healer, not the destroyer. The voice of the sea echoed through the cavern once more. Zara, child of both worlds, you are the one who will heal the rift between land and sea. Your light will guide us all. The future is yours to shape. With that, the cavern seemed to come alive, the waters around them rippling with a new energy. The crystal on the altar glowed one final time before dimming to a soft, steady light. Zara's glow had faded slightly, but it still shimmered, warm and bright. Maya's heart filled with pride and relief. With the final trial complete, the path forward was clear. Zara had chosen. And with that choice, the future of the sea and the land was in her hands. Maya reached out and lifted Zara into her arms. The weight of her daughter was still the same, but now there was a sense of purpose in her. A sense of strength. The child was no longer just the daughter of Maya and Prince Kuba, she was something more. She was the bridge. Sula moved forward, her expression softened with awe. The sea has spoken, Maya. Zara has passed the test of the abyss. She will be the one to unite both worlds. Maya nodded, a tear slipping down her cheek. She's not just my daughter, she's the future. The cavern's light softened, the glowing crystal now pulsing gently as the waters around them calmed. Maya stood still, cradling Zara in her arms, feeling the weight of everything that had happened in the past days, the trials, the storms, the visions. The echoes of the sea's voice still rang in her ears, reverberating through her very bones. But there was something else now, a presence, a feeling in the air that had not been there before. Maya's heart skipped a beat as she looked up. From the shadowed entrance of the cavern, a figure emerged, a figure she knew well, one that she had not seen in what felt like an eternity. Prince Kuba. His silhouette was framed by the soft light of the cavern as he stepped forward, his familiar blue-green scales glistening faintly in the dim glow. His eyes, deep, ancient, and filled with emotion, locked onto Maya's. "Maya," he said, his voice filled with both relief and sadness. "I've been searching for you, for so long." Tears welled in Maya's eyes as she took a step forward, unable to contain her emotions. "Kuba. You came back. I thought I had lost you forever." He smiled, though it was tinged with sorrow. "I never truly left. I was always here, in the depths of the sea. But now I see what has been hidden from me." Zara. Maya looked down at the child in her arms. Zara, her golden glow dimmed but steady, looked up at her father with recognition in her eyes. She stretched out her tiny arms toward him, her face lighting up with a pure, innocent joy. Kuba's heart clenched as he knelt down before his daughter. His fingers brushed gently against her golden skin, his touch light as if afraid to break the connection. "Zara," he whispered, his voice thick with emotion. "I've waited for you." The waters around them seemed to stir in response to his words, as though the very sea recognized the return of its prince. Maya stepped closer to Kuba, her heart swelling with a mixture of love, fear, and hope. She knew that this moment, this reunion, was far from simple. "You've come back," Maya said, her voice trembling. "But the sea," she paused, unable to find the words to explain the weight of everything they had just endured. "Zara has chosen. She's the bridge between the land and the sea. She's the one who will heal the rift." Kuba's expression grew more serious. "I know. I saw it in the visions. The prophecy." He reached into his cloak and pulled out a shimmering, seashell harp, delicate and translucent, its strings made of threads of seaweed and light. He held it up before Maya and Zara. "This," he said softly, "was given to me by my mother, Queen Nia, when I first set out for the surface. She told me it was a gift for the one who would unite the two worlds. I didn't understand what she meant, but now," he glanced at Zara. "Now I see. It's for her." Maya's breath caught in her throat. The harp, the one that had guided them here, the one that had played such a crucial role in their journey, was more than just an object. It was a symbol, a tool for balance. Kuba held the harp out to Zara, who reached for it with both hands. As soon as her fingers touched the strings, a soft, haunting melody filled the air. The sound echoed through the cavern, not just in Maya's ears, but in her heart, in her very soul. It was a song of the sea, ancient, timeless, and full of longing. The melody swirled around them, wrapping the trio in its soft embrace. For a moment, Maya felt as though the entire world had paused. Everything, all of the pain, all of the uncertainty, seemed to vanish in that moment of harmony. But then, the song shifted. The melody grew louder, more insistent, and the water around them began to stir once more. The glow from Zara's hands grew brighter, her small form radiating with the power of both the sea and the earth. Kuba stood up slowly, his eyes locked on his daughter. "She has the power," he murmured. "The power to bring balance, but also the power to destroy if she is not careful." Maya felt her stomach tighten. "What do you mean?" "The prophecy speaks of two forces," Kuba said, his voice low. "One born of the sea, and one born of the earth. Both of them are necessary for balance. Zara has the power of both worlds within her. She is the one who will heal the rift, but she is also the one who could open the floodgates between them." Maya shook her head, her heart racing. "No, she would never. She would never," Kuba repeated softly, "if we guide her. But if the rift between land and sea deepens, if the hatred grows, the forces that Zara now wields will become too great to control." Maya's mind raced. The weight of the prophecy, the responsibility now resting on her daughter's tiny shoulders, felt overwhelming. Zara was more than just their child, she was the key to the future of both the sea and the land. If she faltered, if she was swayed by the wrong forces, both worlds would fall into chaos. Suddenly, a voice echoed through the cavern, familiar and commanding. "Kuba, you have returned. But you have returned too late." Maya froze as she turned to see Queen Nia, her mother-in-law, step from the shadows. Her eyes, cold and distant, were fixed on Zara. Nia's presence was like a storm in the cavern. She wore a flowing robe made of shimmering sea silk, and her silver hair rippled like the currents of the deepest oceans. But her gaze was sharp, filled with ancient wisdom and unyielding power. Kuba stood tall, his shoulders tense. "Mother, please, let us explain." Nia's eyes flickered to Zara, who still held the harp in her hands. "The child may hold the power to heal," she said, her voice low and dangerous, "but she also holds the power to destroy. That is the true nature of the prophecy, Kuba. The balance is a fragile thing. It is not something to be trusted lightly." Kuba took a step forward. "She is our daughter, Nia. She is the one who will bring the healing that we all need." The queen's eyes darkened. "You have lost sight of your purpose, Kuba. I have lived through the years of bitterness between land and sea. I have seen what happens when one world grows too strong. If Zara is allowed to grow too powerful, she will tip the balance. We cannot allow that." Maya stepped forward, her voice strong. "Zara is not a weapon. She is a child. A child who has already shown the wisdom to understand what must be done." Nia's gaze shifted to Maya. "You do not understand the weight of the sea's demands, human. You cannot understand the consequences of what you speak." The cavern seemed to grow colder, the water stirring around them in waves of tension. But Zara, tiny though she was, stepped forward, holding the harp high. The light from the harp began to shine brightly, illuminating the entire cavern. And in that moment, the sea seemed to listen, to pause. Zara spoke, her voice soft but clear. "I will not let the sea drown the earth. And I will not let the earth destroy the sea. I will bring them together." The cavern was still, the air heavy with a quiet intensity. Queen Nia's cold gaze was locked onto Zara, who stood before her, the seashell harp glowing in her tiny hands. The delicate strings vibrated with an energy that Maya had never felt before, an energy that seemed to come not just from Zara, but from the very heart of the sea. Zara's words hung in the air, and for a moment, even Queen Nia seemed stunned into silence. I will not let the sea drown the earth. And I will not let the earth destroy the sea. I will bring them together. The queen's eyes narrowed, her lips pressed tightly together. You speak of unity, child, but unity is not so simple. The sea and the land have been in conflict for millennia. There are forces that cannot be undone with words. The rift between us is not just a matter of will, it is in the very nature of both realms. Kuba stepped forward, his voice firm yet filled with a hint of desperation. But Zara has the power, Nia. She is the one destined to bridge the gap between us, to heal what has been broken. Nia's gaze flickered toward Kuba. You are blinded by your love for your daughter, Kuba. This is not something that can be healed by simple magic or promises. The power that Zara holds, it is both a blessing and a curse. If she grows too strong, she will become an unstoppable force, and the consequences of that will be catastrophic. Maya's heart sank. She could see the fear in Nia's eyes, and for the first time, she felt the weight of the prophecy, of the path that lay ahead for Zara. It was one thing to hear of prophecies and legends, but to realize that her daughter was the key to the survival of both worlds was a truth that was too overwhelming to bear. But Zara, small and golden, stood her ground. I am not afraid, she said, her voice unwavering. I have both the land and the sea inside me. I will not let them destroy each other. I will heal the rift, just as the prophecy says. The seashell harp in her hands began to hum again, the sound filling the cavern. The glow from the harp intensified, and the waters around them began to swirl gently, as though responding to Zara's words. The deep, ancient magic of the sea was flowing through her, and for the first time, Maya saw just how much her daughter had grown, how much power she now held within her. Zara, listen to me, Queen Nia said, her voice sharper than before. You may have the power to bring balance, but you also have the power to destroy everything. The sea does not bow to anyone, especially not to a child born of both worlds. If you do not learn to control your power, you will bring about the very chaos that the prophecy warns against. Zara's eyes narrowed, her small hands gripping the harp tighter. I don't want to destroy anything. I only want to make things right. Nia's expression softened for the briefest of moments, but it was gone just as quickly. She looked to Kuba, her eyes filled with the weight of centuries of knowledge and sorrow. You must understand, Kuba. The sea has its own rules, its own rhythms. There are things that even love cannot change. Zara may hold the power to unite the two realms, but she must first learn to control it, or else she will lose herself to it. Maya stepped forward, her voice strong. But how can she learn to control it? The trials are over, and she has chosen her path. She doesn't need to be controlled, Nia. She needs to be guided, to be shown how to use her gift for good. For a long moment, Nia said nothing. Her sharp, calculating gaze flicked between Zara and Maya, then to Kuba. Finally, she spoke, her voice almost a whisper. If you wish to teach her, then you must take her to the Chamber of Echoes. There, she will face the true test of her power. There, she will see the consequences of her choices, and the cost of what she is capable of. Kuba's face hardened. The Chamber of Echoes. That is a place of legend, hidden deep beneath the coral fortress. It is said that those who enter never return the same. That is the only place where she can truly learn what she is capable of, Nia replied. If she is to walk the path of unity, she must first face herself, and the power she holds within. Only then will she be ready. Maya's heart clenched. The Chamber of Echoes was a place she had heard whispered about in tales, the ancient heart of the sea, where the very essence of one's soul was reflected back to them in its purest form. It was said that the chamber could show one's deepest fears, their darkest desires, and the consequences of their actions. Few who entered ever returned the same, if they returned at all. But she knew one thing. Zara had to go. There was no other way. If Zara was to heal the rift between the land and the sea, she needed to understand the full weight of her power. Kuba turned to Maya, his eyes filled with determination. "We will take her there," he said. "We will face whatever comes. But we must act quickly. The longer we wait, the more the rift will grow. And if the sea's fury is unleashed, it will consume everything." Maya nodded, her heart heavy but resolute. "Then let us go. Let us face whatever awaits us in the Chamber of Echoes." As they made their preparations, Zara clutched the seashell harp tightly in her small hands, her golden light shining brightly in the dim cavern. She was no longer just a child, she was the key to the survival of both worlds. The weight of the prophecy rested on her tiny shoulders, but she was ready. She would face whatever trials awaited her. The journey to the Chamber of Echoes was long and treacherous, winding through the dark, forgotten tunnels beneath the Gulf of Xander. The waters grew colder, the air heavier, as if the very sea was aware of their passage. With each step, the tension between the land and the sea seemed to grow. The sea whispered warnings, its currents shifting unpredictably. But Zara walked forward, her face filled with quiet determination. When they finally reached the entrance to the Chamber of Echoes, they found it guarded by ancient sea serpents, whose eyes glowed with an eerie, otherworldly light. The serpents did not speak, but their presence was enough to send a shiver down Maya's spine. Zara stepped forward, holding the harp aloft. The serpents parted, allowing them to pass. Inside, the chamber was silent. The walls shimmered with the light of the sea, and the air was thick with the weight of the past. It was here that Zara would face the full extent of her power. The entrance to the Chamber of Echoes was a hollowed-out cavern deep beneath the Gulf of Xander, shrouded in shadows and mystery. The waters around them grew still, and an eerie silence descended as they crossed the threshold. The air was thick, dense with the whispers of the sea, as if the very walls of the chamber were alive, listening, waiting. Zara stepped forward, her small feet gliding through the water, the glowing seashell harp still clutched tightly in her hands. The soft hum of the harp seemed to reverberate through the cavern, the sound echoing off the smooth, glittering walls. The light from the harp illuminated the space before them, revealing the intricate designs etched into the stone, symbols of the ancient sea, of creatures long forgotten, and of the first beings who had walked the world before land and sea were divided. Kuba and Maya followed close behind, their eyes wide with awe and trepidation. They had heard the stories, of those who entered the chamber and never returned, of the tests and trials that awaited the unworthy. But they were here for one reason, to help Zara understand the power she wielded, the power that could either heal the rift between the land and the sea or tear both worlds apart. As they moved deeper into the chamber, the walls seemed to shift, and the temperature dropped. It was as if the very air was alive with anticipation. Then, at the center of the cavern, a glowing pool of water began to form, swirling gently in a soft spiral, its surface gleaming like a mirror. The water seemed to beckon them forward. Zara stepped to the edge of the pool, her golden glow now brighter than ever. She hesitated for a moment, looking up at Kuba and Maya, seeking reassurance. Kuba nodded, his eyes filled with love and pride. Maya gave her a gentle smile, though the worry in her eyes was impossible to hide. "You are ready, Zara," Maya said softly. "This is your journey. Face what lies within." With a deep breath, Zara lowered herself to her knees at the edge of the pool. As her fingers touched the surface of the water, the pool began to ripple, and the reflection that appeared was not of her own face, but of the future, the past, and the truths she had yet to understand. The surface of the water shimmered, and before her, visions began to form. Vision 1, the land and the sea torn apart. The first vision that appeared was a scene of destruction, one that seemed to be pulled from the very heart of the earth. Zara saw herself standing on a shore, but the sky above her was dark, the winds howling, and the sea crashing violently against the land. The waves towered above her, threatening to swallow everything whole. In the distance, she saw a figure, a man, with long, flowing hair and eyes that burned with fury. Prince Kuba stood at the shore, his face twisted in anguish, reaching out toward her, but the raging sea was between them, tearing them apart. "Zara, you cannot save both worlds. Choose," the figure of Kuba shouted, his voice barely audible over the roar of the waves. "The land or the sea. You cannot have both." Zara's heart pounded in her chest as she tried to reach out to him, but the waves pulled her back. She watched in horror as the land and the sea clashed, their ancient battle tearing the world apart, and there was nothing she could do to stop it. Vision 2, the Heart of the Sea. The next vision that appeared was calmer, but no less unsettling. Zara found herself underwater, surrounded by the swirling currents of the deep. Fish of all shapes and colors darted through the water, but the atmosphere was heavy, as though something ancient and powerful was watching her. In the distance, she saw a massive, luminescent creature, its eyes glowing like stars. It was Queen Nia, her body swirling with the energy of the ocean, her silver hair flowing like a river. The queen's eyes locked onto Zara's, her gaze both warm and cold. "You are the bridge, child," Queen Nia's voice echoed, though she did not speak aloud. Zara could feel it within her mind. "You are the one who holds the power to heal the rift. But remember, the sea does not forget. It is constant. It is unforgiving. If you choose this path, you must face the consequences." Zara's heart thudded in her chest. "What will happen to my family?" she asked, her voice trembling. "To the people of the land." Queen Nia's gaze softened for a moment, but then she looked away. The land and the sea are two halves of a whole. One cannot survive without the other, but both are flawed. You will decide their fate, Zara. The choice is yours, and yours alone. Vision 3, the memory of her father. The final vision was one that Zara had not expected. In this vision, she stood on a beach, her feet sinking into the soft sand. The waves lapped gently at her toes, and the sun shone brightly in the sky. Then, a figure appeared beside her, tall and strong. It was Kuba, her father, but he was different in this vision. He was no longer the prince she had known, the figure of legend and lore, but a man, with a warm smile and open arms. "I am proud of you, Zara," Kuba said, his voice calm and gentle. "You have the strength of both worlds within you, and you will change everything. You will heal the rift that divides us. But you must do it with love." Tears welled up in Zara's eyes as she gazed at him. "But how can I? The land and the sea are so different. How can I make them understand each other?" Kuba knelt beside her, placing a hand on her shoulder. "You don't need to make them understand, Zara. You understand. And that is all that matters." With a final, lingering look, the figure of Kuba disappeared, leaving Zara alone on the shore, the weight of the visions pressing down on her. The chamber's silent judgment. The visions ceased as suddenly as they had begun, and the water in the pool stilled, reflecting only Zara's face once more. Her golden glow had dimmed, but her eyes were brighter than ever, filled with the weight of what she had just seen. Kuba and Maya rushed forward, both reaching out to her as if afraid she would disappear into the waters. "Zara, are you all right?" Maya asked, her voice filled with concern. Zara nodded, but her face was pale. She had seen the truth, and it was more than she could bear. "I understand now," Zara said softly. "The rift is not just between the sea and the land. It's within all of us. We are all divided, by fear, by hatred, by misunderstanding. But if we don't change, we will destroy each other." Kuba looked at her with pride, but there was fear in his eyes. "What will you do, Zara? What is your choice?" Zara took a deep breath and stood tall, her hands trembling but her voice steady. "I will not choose between the sea and the land. I will heal the rift by uniting them. By uniting them through love." As she spoke, the waters around them began to ripple once more. The sea seemed to respond to her words, its power rising in answer. The chamber of echoes had heard her. Zara was ready. The echoes of Zara's voice still lingered in the chamber, vibrating through the waters, filling the space with the heavy weight of her decision. The ripples that had begun when she spoke began to grow, expanding outward, like waves reaching across the deep, endless ocean. There was no turning back now. Kuba and Maya stood by her side, watching her with bated breath, their faces filled with hope and fear. This was the moment. Zara could feel the immense pressure in the air, the pull of both worlds, each one vying for her loyalty, each one demanding her allegiance. But Zara had already made up her mind. The time for choosing was over. The time for uniting had arrived. Zara stepped away from the pool, her golden glow lighting the chamber as she moved. The seashell harp still hummed in her hands, vibrating with the pulse of the sea. She raised it high, its glow intensifying, and for a moment, the world around her seemed to hold its breath. "I will not choose one over the other," she said, her voice steady but filled with a strength that surprised even herself. "I will bring both worlds together, as they were always meant to be. The sea and the land will coexist, and they will be united by the love we share, not by the fear that has kept us apart." The words echoed through the chamber, and as they did, something began to shift in the very fabric of reality. The waters that surrounded them began to churn, not with violence, but with a deep, ancient power. The currents of the ocean moved in response, circling around Zara in a slow, rhythmic dance. For the first time, she could feel the sea's heart, beating in time with hers. The test of unity. Suddenly, the waters before Zara began to swirl violently. The chamber of echoes had come to life, and Zara knew that this was the final test, the one that would determine if she could truly unite the sea and the land. She could feel the pressure building, the energies of the two realms converging upon her. The sea demanded its due, and the land yearned for peace. A voice boomed from the depths of the chamber, ancient and powerful, echoing off the walls. "Do you truly understand the price of unity, Zara?" it asked, a challenge in its tone. "To unite the sea and the land, you must give up that which you hold most dear. You must sacrifice a piece of your soul, for both worlds cannot survive without a price. What will you offer? What will you sacrifice?" Zara stood tall, her heart pounding in her chest. She knew what the voice was asking her, and she knew what it was offering in return. But she had already made her choice. There was no going back. "I will give the sea and the land the gift of understanding," Zara said, her voice unwavering. "I will offer my most cherished memory, not to lose it, but to share it with both worlds, so that both can understand the love and the pain that binds them together." The water before her shimmered, and for a moment, the vision of her father appeared, a brief but bright flash. The image of Kuba, smiling and proud, standing beside her in the light, filled her heart with warmth. The memory of her father, of their love, was more precious to her than anything else. It was the memory that had led her to this moment. And she would give it up, not to lose it, but to help both realms understand what she had learned. The sacrifice. As Zara held the harp aloft, her golden light glowing brighter than ever, a soft, haunting melody began to fill the air. It was a song that was both familiar and new, a song that resonated with the very soul of the earth. It was the song of unity, a song that spoke of the land and the sea, of their eternal bond, and of the love that could heal all wounds. The water before Zara began to shimmer, forming into a shimmering figure, a reflection of her cherished memory. It was Kuba, standing tall and proud, his face filled with love and joy, but this time, there was something different about him. He was no longer just her father. He was both land and sea, bound together in one eternal dance. With a deep breath, Zara closed her eyes and let the song flow through her. The music that echoed from the harp was her final gift. She sang the song of love, the song of understanding, the song that would heal the rift. The earth responds. The waters began to surge, the current of the sea rising higher and higher, but this time it was not in anger. The waves swirled in a dance of harmony, moving in unison with the rhythm of the earth itself. The winds began to blow, not in the violent storm that had once threatened to tear everything apart, but in a gentle breeze that whispered of change, of new beginnings. Zara felt the pull of both realms, felt the weight of the decision she had made. The sea and the land, once at war, were now coming together. It was a delicate balance, one that would take time to heal, but it was happening. She could feel it deep within her, the very pulse of the earth and the sea, working in tandem. And then, as suddenly as it had all begun, the chamber fell silent. The water stilled, the winds died down, and the glowing light from Zara's harp faded. For a long moment, there was nothing but quiet. Zara opened her eyes, and she saw the truth. The sea and the land had not only coexisted, but they had become one. The rift that had once threatened to destroy them both was beginning to heal, slowly but surely. Zara had given up her cherished memory, not to erase it, but to share it with the world, to remind them that love was the bridge that could heal even the deepest divides. Zara turned to Kuba and Maya, her face filled with both exhaustion and hope. The journey was far from over, but they had taken the first step toward a new world, a world where both the sea and the land could live in harmony. "We did it," Maya said softly, her voice filled with pride. Kuba nodded, his eyes glistening with unshed tears. "Zara, you have done what none before you could. You have bridged the gap, healed the rift. You have given both worlds the greatest gift they could ever receive, understanding." Zara smiled, though the weight of her sacrifice still lingered in her heart. It was never just about choosing one over the other. It was always about finding balance. And so, with the harmony between the sea and the land restored, the journey to heal both worlds had just begun. The waters of the Gulf of Xandar had calmed, the once fierce waves now gentle and steady. Zara, Kuba, and Maya emerged from the Chamber of Echoes, each of them changed by the journey they had just completed. They were no longer just inhabitants of the land or the sea, but beings united by the love and understanding that transcended both realms. It was a peace that had never existed before, but now, it was theirs to protect. As they swam back to the surface, the landscape of the world seemed different, more alive, more harmonious. The sky was brighter, and the sea sparkled beneath the sun, as though it had been cleansed, purified by Zara's sacrifice and the love she had woven between the land and the water. The journey back to the village was quiet, but there was a sense of anticipation in the air. Zara held the seashell harp in her arms, the glowing light now a soft, steady glow, a symbol of the unity between the worlds. Kuba swam beside her, his hand resting gently on her shoulder, pride and affection in his eyes. Maya, ever the supportive figure, swam just behind them, watching with a loving gaze. When they reached the shore of the village, they found that the people had gathered, awaiting their return. The once divided villagers, those who had feared the sea, those who had loved it, stood together. The air between them was no longer filled with tension but with curiosity, hope, and a desire to heal the wounds of the past. Zara, Kuba, and Maya emerged from the waters, and the villagers gasped at the sight. There was no longer a barrier between the worlds, and in Zara's eyes, they saw the wisdom of both realms. The sea and the land were now one, not divided by fear but united by love and understanding. Zara stepped forward, her voice calm but filled with the power of her journey. "The land and the sea have always been one, though we did not know it. We fought, we feared, and we misunderstood each other. But now, we must live as one, side by side." The villagers, at first hesitant, began to listen. They had long viewed the sea as something dangerous, something to be feared, but now, seeing the unity in Zara's eyes, they realized that it was not the sea that had caused the rift but their own misunderstanding of it. They, too, had been a part of the divide, and now, they would be part of the healing. Kuba stood beside her, his deep voice carrying across the group. "The sea is not our enemy. It is our partner, our friend, and our source of life. We must learn to respect it and understand its rhythms. We must heal together, as one people." Maya, always the quiet strength, added, "The sea has always been a part of us. And now, we will build a future where both the land and the sea thrive together." The villagers began to murmur among themselves, and then, slowly, they nodded. The seed of change had been planted. Over the next few months, Zara, Kuba, and Maya worked alongside the villagers, showing them how to live in harmony with the sea. They taught them the importance of respect for the water, the creatures that lived in it, and the rhythms that governed it. They built new ways to gather the bounty of the ocean without taking more than was needed, ensuring that both the land and the sea could thrive. The sea no longer seemed like a foreign world to the villagers. They learned how to listen to its whispers, how to read the tides, and how to honor the creatures that swam beneath the waves. In turn, the villagers shared their knowledge of the land, how to cultivate the soil, how to heal with herbs, and how to live in balance with nature. Together, they formed a community that was no longer divided, but whole. And at the heart of that community was Zara, who had bridged the gap between two worlds. Months passed, and as the seasons changed, so too did the village. The once tense relationship between the sea and the land became a beautiful partnership, one that benefited both realms. The fishermen returned to the waters, their boats full, but they no longer took more than what they needed. The farmers worked the soil, knowing that the sea would nourish their crops in return. Zara's child, The mermaid baby that had once been a symbol of fear, was now the symbol of hope. Her child, a living testament to the union of the sea and the land, grew up in a world that understood both. One evening, as the sun set over the Gulf of Xander, the village gathered to celebrate. It was a festival, a celebration of the unity between the sea and the land. People danced, sang, and feasted, their voices rising in harmony, their steps in time with the rhythms of the earth and the ocean. At the heart of the celebration stood Zara, Kuba, and Maya, watching as the people danced together. It was the world they had dreamed of, a world where love had healed the rift that once threatened to tear them apart. As the stars began to twinkle in the sky above, Zara turned to her family, a peaceful smile on her face. "We have done it," she said softly. "We have healed the rift between the sea and the land. We have healed the hearts of the people." But it wasn't just the sea or the land that needed healing, it was all of us. Kuba nodded, his hand resting on her shoulder. "We must never forget that the true power of the sea and the land lies in understanding, in knowing that neither one can survive without the other. We must always choose to live in balance, not in conflict." Maya smiled, adding, "The love we have for each other is the strongest force of all. It is that love that healed the rift, and it is that love that will carry us forward." Zara's child giggled in her arms, their laughter echoing across the shore. The stars sparkled above, and the sea whispered gently at their feet. And so, the story of the land and the sea, of love and sacrifice, came to its peaceful conclusion. But the lesson was clear: love, understanding, and balance are the keys to healing, and when we come together, we can overcome any divide. The end. This story teaches that no matter how deep the divide or how fierce the conflict, it is love, understanding, and sacrifice that can heal even the greatest rift. It reminds us that true harmony is found not in choosing sides, but in finding common ground, in coming together to build a future that benefits everyone. When we learn to listen to each other and understand each other's hearts, there is nothing we cannot overcome.